Full shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, just some social shit for everyone, you know what I'm saying? Like, I made this be myself, so hear me. Woo! I mean, like, we can put all that clown shit away. There's some real shit for you. I'm spazzing right now, so listen, let's go. Yeah. It's in their bones, the thugs in harmony for the love of the money. Then fall victim for the cookie, then turn pussy, it's lonely. You said you hold it down when life get rough, we're here now, so show me. We move them losses to them wins. Heavy pounds, we make it ends meet. Converse with only few who make me feel like I be 10 feet.
Yes, ladies and gents, we are back in the building, and today I wanted to talk about Liverpool and their striking situation. So obviously we kind of know, Liverpool this season looking like they're going on to, win the Premier League title. Of course, they've been knocked out of the Champions League, knocked out of the FA Cup, knocked out of the Carabao Cup, losing in the final. So the Premier League is probably what Liverpool will, of course, end the season with, which is, of course, fantastic. Now, with that being said, obviously one of the biggest talking points this season, especially because Liverpool did get knocked out of all of the cup competitions, has been about the striker situation. Now, Liverpool, of course, have been linked with various different players throughout the season, whether it's 𝐒𝐷𝐀𝐃, João Pedro, Alexander Isak, 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐒, so many different types of strikers, right? And I think one of the big things is, what type of striker does Arne Slot even want? Of course, we don't know at this current moment in time. We don't really have any real indication. The only real thing we can kind of look back on is, of course, his time, at Feyenoord, and of course he had Santiago Jimenez. Now, as I said before, he is, the only kind of reference point that we do have, and he's someone who scored a lot of goals, for Feyenoord under Arne Slot, and he was probably what I would call more of a natural striker, because he had, real pure striking instincts. And what I mean by that is someone who can kind of sniff a goal, but can still do the modern day stuff, which is, what managers kind of request and ask for, the off the ball work, something that we didn't really have back in the day, but now, managers are really asking for their players, off the ball. Can they rate the right movements? Are they pressing right? All of these kind of little things. But I think he did have that kind of killer instinct, more than most other strikers. He wasn't just about the pressing and, little things like that. And you can even see here, this is a little scouting report, that was done, on Santiago Jimenez. And, you can see here, look, he's a classical centre forward, goal scorer kind of profile, loves to operate near the penalty area where he becomes most dangerous. Jimenez stands out for his great positioning and off the ball movements, superb finishing, and innate killer instinct. Playing for Feyenoord, his function does not make him an active player in the build-up or on the ball, averaging just around 15 passes per 90 minutes. Now, and of course, this is his heat map from that 23-24 season. And, that report was, written in December of 2023. So again, this is kind of what a striker under Arne Slot was kind of doing. You can see where the main area of focus is for a player like that, someone who is in the box. But of course, there needs to be other moving parts, i.e. the type of wingers that, someone like an Arne Slot likes to actually play with. And obviously the type of wingers that he's actually been, he's actually had during his time at Feyenoord. Of course, he's never had a Mo Salah. So, things are going to be a little bit different. But of course, that number 9 role in itself, if we're just looking at that in isolation, I do believe that he is looking more for this type of profile. So a natural number 9, as opposed to, would I say, like a Firmino. Now, of course, one of the major things that I keep seeing, from a lot of the Liverpool fan base and, quite a lot of people is, and again, this is just purely based off of what we don't really know in regards, to Arne Slot as to, what he is going to sign in the future. But a lot of people have said, we need that kind of, they missed the Firmino profile at Liverpool. We need that kind of profile in order for us to, make our attack look just a little bit more balanced and a bit more, well jointed, because at this current moment in time, it is very Salah centric, and people feel that there's an unbalance with that, which is absolutely fine. But ultimately, do we feel that a Firmino type of individual is the type of player that Arne Slot really wants to use, moving forward? Does he want someone, this season he's tried it with Diogo Jota, Darwin Núñez, Luis Diaz, where he has used that kind of false nine kind of role, right? And yes, it's worked in parts in some games, but I would say in the majority, I don't think it's really worked. I think you can kind of see that Liverpool are still lacking that kind of killer instinct in that number 9 position. You can see even against Newcastle in the final, you could see there was a moment when Luis Diaz had the ball, out there on the wings, and, there's no one in the box. And I just think, over a course of a season, of course, listen, if you've got a Mo Salah, then it will work, but if you don't have a Mo Salah, I think in terms of the fluidity of the front line, in terms of what you're trying to do moving forward as a front line and as an attack, I genuinely believe that Liverpool are going to need a different type of profile of striker. And I think that type of striker is probably in the mold of the Alexander Isaks, the Harry Kane's probably, but I feel like Alexander Isak probably fits that mold more so down to a T. And I think one of the main reasons as to why I feel, and again, this is just only a guess, I have no idea what Arne Slot is thinking, but one of the reasons why I feel that he would want this type of profile is one of the things we read there in that kind of scouting report was, that innate killer instinct. I do believe that someone like Alexander Isak does actually possess that. Now, obviously, we can take a look, at his heat map. And when you do look at it, of course, you guys can see, he is someone who can operate, in that kind of, he can operate in a false 9 on the left wing, on the right thing. He is someone who does like to drift out to that left-hand side, and cut in. Sometimes he'll play a 1-2 with a Gordon or whoever's in that kind of attacking midfield position. He'll do the same thing on the right-hand side with a Murphy, over there. But primarily, he will be in that box. And I think that, for me, is a big thing for Liverpool, is really having that kind of box presence, something that I don't really feel Liverpool kind of have, that whole, penalty area movement. Alexander Isak, for me, has that. One thing about Isak is that he's really, really good at is he operates on the blind side. His spatial awareness and, his positional intelligence is really, really good. And I think, again, these are the kind of things that I feel, someone like a Santiago Jimenez obviously had, maybe not as good or maybe even better than Isak, depending on which side of the fence that you kind of sit on. But where he operates on the blind side, of the opposition centre-backs, he always positions himself, on the outside of their kind of line of vision. That gives him that advantage, over defenders, because they end up losing track. You can see here, literally in this photo, the centre-back, I believe that's probably Harry Maguire. You can see he has no idea where Isak actually is. And there's about 4 players in the box, give or take 2, who are very, very close to Isak, but yet none of them can seemingly, get there in time. And I think it's little things, like that. I would say it's like the smartness of being a striker. It's that instinct of being an attacker and understanding what you need to do in certain situations. Another thing that must, again, striker instinct. This is why for me Isak is probably, the perfect choice. Is, he always slightly, stands offside during like the kind of build-up phase. And obviously at times it's not going to work. He's going to be caught offside and, things like that. But I don't feel like it happens too often. But, once he does that, you can see straight away he creates that kind of uncertainty, amongst defenders, because they constantly have to keep looking around, right? And they always have to be aware of their own surrounding, which they should be doing anyway in general. But in this kind of case, they constantly have to keep looking around. Where is he? But then they see that he's offside. Okay, he's offside. Do we need to worry about it? Maybe I might just drop an extra yard. Maybe I push up an extra yard. But if I do, I don't know where he is. He's fast. He can get in behind anyway. He's going to create space for himself. Too many questions. And I know centre-backs do not want to be asking that many questions, when they are defending. They want their life to be a little bit more easier, than that. So that's where I look at someone like Isak and I just think to myself, of course, it all comes down to tactics. It all comes down to style of play and whether Arne Slot is going to utilize that with someone like an Isak. But I feel if you've got a player like that who is naturally very smart in these kind of areas and can drop deep, can pick up the ball, can, get the play kind of going, can be a focal point, can dribble, you know, on the outside, and all these kind of various different things. I look at that and think to myself immediately, okay, if he can do all of these other things, and all you're really missing is someone who just has the, would I say, the cuteness, the awareness, the understanding of when they need to be in the box, I feel like it, you know, it's almost a no-brainer. And for me, that feels like it would be the perfect option. Now, whether Isak himself is that perfect option remains to be seen. But I do feel that Liverpool need that type of profile of striker in order for them to, you know, be able to progress and move on, you know, next season, especially if a Mo Salah, you know, is to leave. As I've said before, I think for Liverpool this summer, it's going to be such an interesting window. Of course, with the likes of Diogo Jota, you know, Chiesa potentially, Darwin Núñez, Luis Diaz, all looking like they may potentially leave. And with the Mo Salah contract still, you know, not sorted out, Liverpool have been, you know, reportedly interested in a lot of these strikers. So, like I said, João Pedro, Isak, Cunha, Gyökeres, 𝐒𝐾𝐃. There's been a few of these players. Now, I just wonder as to what type of striker are Liverpool going to go in for, you know, in the summer. What is the direction? I think once we get that striker in, if we get that striker in, should I say, but once we get that player in, I think we'll then understand a little bit more as to the type of football that someone like Arne Slot wants to play, you know, for next season. And of course, I feel that next season will be more of a transition, because I do believe that quite a few players will be leaving the club. So now Arne Slot will be able to really put his imprint in, you know, on the team in itself. So let's wait and see. But guys, let me know in the chat, man, what type of striker do you think that we should be going for, you know, for Liverpool Football Club in the summer?